The apartment was silent, except for the rhythmic drip of the kitchen faucet I'd been meaning to fix for weeks. I sat cross-legged on my threadbare couch, the fabric worn thin from years of use, staring at the rejection email glowing on my phone screen. "We regret to inform you." The words blurred together as tears pricked the corners of my eyes. 3 months behind on rent, my waitressing job barely covering groceries, and now this. Another interview. Another door slammed in my face. I pressed my palms against my eyes, willing myself not to cry. The apartment smelled of instant ramen and desperation, a scent I'd grown intimately familiar with since moving to the city 2 years ago. Outside my window, the sounds of Friday night revelry echoed through the streets, laughter, music, the promise of something better happening to everyone but me. My phone buzzed. Sarah. Of course. Sarah. "Girl, tonight's the night. Remember, 8 p.m. at Velocity. Don't be late. This guy is perfect for you. Doctor, kind, actually has his life together. Wear that blue dress." I glanced at the clock. 6:47 p.m. The last thing I wanted was to sit across from some stranger, pretending my life wasn't falling apart, forcing smiles while calculating if I could afford to split an appetizer. But Sarah had been begging me for weeks, insisting that her colleague Marcus was exactly what I needed, and she'd already told him I was coming. With a heavy sigh, I dragged myself to the shower, letting lukewarm water wash away the sticky heat of the day. The blue dress she'd mentioned hung in my closet, a relic from better times when I'd actually had occasions to dress up for. The fabric whispered against my skin as I pulled it on, the color bringing out my eyes even as it emphasized how much weight I'd lost from stress and skipped meals. By 7:30, I was standing outside Velocity, a sleek restaurant in the financial district that I'd never have dreamed of entering on my own. Glass and chrome reflected the city lights, and through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see beautiful people dining on meals that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. My hands trembled as I smoothed down my dress, suddenly aware of how out of place I looked. The hostess barely glanced at me. "Reservation name? Marcus? Marcus Chen? I'm meeting someone." She scanned her tablet, immaculate nails clicking against the screen. "I don't see a Marcus Chen. Are you sure you have the right restaurant?" Heat crept up my neck. Of course something would go wrong. Maybe he's running late? Could I wait at the bar? She gave me a look that suggested I was already ruining her evening before gesturing vaguely toward the bar area. I navigated through tables of laughing couples and business deals being sealed over expensive wine, feeling increasingly invisible. The bartender took one look at my worn clutch and turned his attention to a man in a suit, signaling for a refill. 8:15 p.m. I checked my phone obsessively. No messages from Sarah, no calls. I tried texting her, but the message wouldn't send. My service provider had probably throttled my data again since I was late on that bill too. The bartender finally deigned to approach me, and I ordered a water, my voice small. 8:45 p.m. The other patrons had started to notice me. The girl sitting alone, nursing water, checking her phone every 30 seconds. Pity, amusement. I recognized both in their sidelong glances. My eyes burned with unshed tears as I fumbled with my phone, desperately trying to get my messages to go through. That's when the frustration bubbled over. I switched to my banking app, realizing I might have enough for one drink if I could just get the mobile hotspot from the coffee shop next door. I stepped outside into the cool night air, and finally, blessed connection. Messages flooded in, but none from Sarah. Instead, 3 from my landlord about the rent, 2 from my credit card company, and 1 from my mom asking if I was eating enough. The weight of it all pressed down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. My fingers moved almost of their own accord, typing out a message to Sarah. Me. I can't do this anymore. I'm sitting here alone looking like an idiot. This date was a disaster before it even started. I'm done. I'm so tired of everything being so hard. Please tell Marcus I'm sorry. Something came up. I'm going home. I hit send, shoving my phone into my clutch as I blinked back tears. The street was quieter here, away from the restaurant's entrance. I started walking toward the subway, my heels clicking against the pavement, when my phone buzzed. I pulled it out, expecting Sarah's apology or explanation. Instead, a number I didn't recognize. The message made my blood run cold. Unknown. Address? My heart stuttered. I stared at the screen, confusion mixing with a creeping sense of unease. This wasn't Sarah's number. I checked my sent messages, and my stomach dropped. The message I'd sent, it hadn't gone to Sarah. The number was 1 digit off. In my frustration and the poor lighting, I'd mistyped. I'd sent my vulnerable, desperate confession to a complete stranger. Heat flooded my face as humiliation crashed over me. Quickly, I typed back, "Me. I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore that message." The response came within seconds. Unknown. Too late. Address. Now. My hands shook as I read it. The tone was commanding. Absolute. Not a request, an order. Who talks like that? My mind raced through possibilities. Some creep who got off on harassing women? A prank? But something about the stark simplicity of those words made my skin prickle with awareness. Me. I don't know who you are. It was a mistake. I'm fine. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. The weight felt eternal, my heart hammering against my ribs as I stood on the darkening street corner. Unknown. You said you're done, that everything is hard, you're not fine. Where are you? The unexpected concern in those words, buried beneath the commanding tone, made something in my chest twist. This stranger had read my moment of weakness, and instead of mocking or ignoring it, was, what? Offering help? Demanding my location? The contradiction was disorienting. Me. Really? It's okay, just had a bad night. Thank you for your concern, but I'm handling it. Unknown. Velocity, financial district, still there? The air left my lungs. How did he know? Then I realized I must have mentioned it in my confused state, or he'd looked up restaurants in the area, or my mind spun with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Me. How do you know that? Unknown. Lucky guess. Stay there. Me. I'm leaving. Please don't worry about it. I'm sorry for the confusion. Unknown. Don't move. The finality of those 2 words stopped me mid-step. This was insane. I didn't know this person. They could be anyone. Dangerous, disturbed, or just someone with too much time and a savior complex. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to block the number, get on the subway, go home, and forget this entire nightmare of an evening. But something kept me rooted to the spot. Maybe it was the sheer bizarreness of the situation. Maybe it was that commanding tone that expected obedience and somehow made a part of me want to give it. Or maybe it was just that I was so tired of fighting everything alone that even a stranger's concern felt like a lifeline. Me. Why? Unknown. Coming. That single word sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the cool night air. Coming. Present tense. Active. Definite. Someone was on their way to me right now. A person whose face I couldn't picture, whose intentions I couldn't guess, whose very existence had been unknown to me 15 minutes ago. I should run. I should block the number and disappear into the subway tunnels and never think about this again. Instead, I stood there on the corner outside Velocity, my blue dress fluttering in the evening breeze, my heart racing with a mixture of fear and something I couldn't quite name, watching the street for I didn't know what. Waiting. 10 minutes passed like hours. I paced the sidewalk, my heels scraping against the concrete, second-guessing every decision that had led me to this moment. Twice I started walking toward the subway entrance. Twice something pulled me back. The logical part of my brain cataloged all the ways this could go wrong. Serial killer, human trafficker, some deranged person who preyed on vulnerable women through misdirected text messages. But I stayed. The street had grown quieter, most of the dinner crowd already seated inside warm restaurants. The post-work rush faded into Friday night leisure. I hugged my arms around myself, the evening chill seeping through my thin dress, when I heard it. The low, powerful purr of an expensive engine. A black SUV turned the corner, moving with predatory grace through the sparse traffic. The windows were tinted so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Everything about the vehicle screamed money and power. The glossy paint that probably cost more than my yearly rent, the chrome accents catching the streetlights, the way other cars seemed to give it space instinctively. It pulled up to the curb directly in front of me, and my breath caught. The back door opened before the vehicle had fully stopped, and a man emerged. I'd expected someone intimidating, maybe, given the commanding texts. What I hadn't expected was this. A figure that seemed to reorganize the very air around him. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out a charcoal suit that looked like it had been sewn onto his body by some master tailor. Dark hair, slightly longer on top, swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, sharp jawline, high cheekbones, and eyes so dark they appeared black in the streetlight. But it wasn't his appearance that made my heart stutter. It was the aura of absolute authority that radiated from him like heat. The way he moved. Economical, purposeful, like a predator who'd never known what it meant to be prey. The driver who'd opened his door, a massive man with a scar running down his neck, stood at attention with the posture of military training or something harder. Those dark eyes found me immediately, locked on with an intensity that made me forget how to breathe. He moved toward me with measured steps, and I noticed everything. The faint scent of expensive cologne mixing with something darker, leather and whiskey and smoke. The way his shoes clicked authoritatively against the pavement, the absolute silence of the man behind him who radiated menace despite never making a sound. "You're still here." His voice matched the texts, commanding, deep, with an edge that suggested he wasn't used to being questioned. But there was something else underneath, a note I couldn't quite identify. Relief? Approval? I don't know why, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Every instinct screamed contradictions. Run, stay, hide, stand tall. He stopped about 3 feet away, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes, far enough that I didn't feel immediately threatened. His gaze traveled over me, not leering but assessing, taking in details with the focus of someone who missed nothing. The worn clutch, the slightly scuffed heels I'd tried to polish, the way I was shivering despite my best efforts to appear calm. "You're cold." Not a question, an observation delivered as fact. Before I could respond, he was shrugging out of his suit jacket. The movement revealed a crisp white shirt that did nothing to hide the powerful build beneath it, and something else, a shoulder holster, the dark leather and metal glint visible for just a moment before he draped the jacket over my shoulders. The warmth was immediate and overwhelming. The fabric still held his body heat, and that scent intensified, expensive and masculine and utterly intoxicating. I pulled it closer instinctively, and something flickered across his face. Satisfaction. "Thank you," I managed, "but you didn't have to come all the way here. I told you it was a mistake. You told me you were done, that everything was hard." He tilted his head slightly, studying me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. People don't say things like that unless they mean them. I was just frustrated. Bad night, stood up on a blind date, life falling apart, the usual. I tried for a self-deprecating laugh, but it came out shaky. "Not your problem. It is now." Those 3 words, delivered with such finality, sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. Something about the way he said it, like he'd made a decision that couldn't be unmade, made my pulse quicken. "I don't even know your name," I said, trying to inject some rationality into this surreal situation. "Dante." He said it simply, as if I should recognize it. When I didn't react, something almost like amusement touched his eyes. "And you are?" "Emma. Emma Shaw." I shifted my weight, hyper-aware of his proximity, the way his presence seemed to create a bubble of space around us that the rest of the city couldn't penetrate. "Look, Dante, I appreciate you coming, but I'm fine. Really. I'll just head home and..." "Home to what? The apartment you're 3 months behind on?" His words were matter-of-fact, not cruel, but they hit like a physical blow. I stared at him, my mouth opening and closing soundlessly. "How do you..." "I didn't say that. I didn't tell you. You didn't have to." He gestured toward the phone still clutched in my hand. "Your message said everything was hard." You're dressed for an expensive restaurant you clearly can't afford, stood up on a date you didn't want to go on, and you're shaking from more than just the cold. The signs aren't difficult to read for someone who pays attention. The accuracy of his assessment should have frightened me. Instead, I felt oddly exposed, like he'd seen straight through all my carefully maintained pretenses to the desperate truth underneath. No one had really looked at me, seen me, in so long that even this stranger's attention felt both terrifying and validating. "I should go," I whispered, but I didn't move. "You should eat." He glanced toward Velocity, then back at me, making some internal calculation. "When was your last meal?" "I had lunch." A lie. It had been yesterday's lunch, actually. Breakfast had been black coffee, and I'd been planning to skip dinner to save money. His eyes narrowed, and I had the distinct impression he knew exactly how much truth that statement held. Without breaking eye contact, he made a subtle gesture with his hand. The driver materialized beside him instantly, leaning in as Dante murmured something too quiet for me to hear. The driver nodded and spoke into a device at his wrist. "What are you doing?" I asked, alarm rising. "Taking care of you." He said it like it was obvious, like he'd already decided my fate, and my agreement was merely a formality. "There's a car coming. We're going somewhere you can eat properly." "I can't just go with you. I don't know you. You could be anyone." I could be. That almost smile touched his lips again, dangerous and knowing. But I'm not. And deep down, you know that, or you wouldn't still be standing here. He was right, and that terrified me more than anything else. Some instinct I didn't understand was telling me that despite the obvious danger radiating from this man, despite every logical reason to run, I was safer with him than I'd been in months. It made no sense. It went against every rule I'd ever learned about stranger danger and self-preservation, but when a sleek black sedan pulled up beside the SUV and Dante extended his hand to me, palm up, waiting with infinite patience for me to make a choice that felt inevitable, I took it. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong and possessive, and something shifted in the air between us. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, a gesture so gentle it contrasted sharply with the hardness in his eyes, and I saw something flicker in his expression. Hunger, not the kind that could be satisfied with food. "Wise choice, Emma Shaw," he murmured, and guided me toward the waiting car. The driver, a different one this time, equally imposing, opened the door. The interior was all black leather and tinted windows, the kind of luxury I'd only seen in movies. Dante waited until I was seated before sliding in beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his body, smell that intoxicating scent that seemed to wrap around me. The door closed with a solid final sound. Through the tinted windows, the city looked different, distant, like we'd entered another world entirely. Dante's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, his expression hardening into something that made my breath catch. Pure, cold fury flashed across his face for a moment before he controlled it, typing out a response with swift, precise movements. "Problem?" I asked without thinking. He looked at me, and the fury faded, replaced by something I couldn't read. "Nothing that concerns you. Everything about this concerns me," I pointed out, trying to sound braver than I felt. "I'm in a strange car with a man I don't know, going to an unknown location. I think I have a right to some information." That earned me a real smile, small but genuine, transforming his face from merely handsome to absolutely devastating. "Fair enough. We're going to my restaurant, private dining room. You'll eat, we'll talk, and then I'll have you driven home safely. You have my word." The word of a stranger. The word of Dante Caruso. He said the last name with weight, watching my face for recognition. I searched my memory but came up blank. Should that mean something to me? Something crossed his expression. Surprise, maybe. Or something more complex. "Refreshing," he murmured, almost to himself. Then louder. "Most people in this city know that name." "I'm not most people," I said, lifting my chin with a defiance I didn't feel. "I work double shifts at a diner in Queens, can barely pay my bills, and apparently text strangers when I'm having a breakdown. So no, your name doesn't mean anything to me, except that you're clearly rich enough to have multiple cars and drivers and private dining rooms." He leaned back against the leather seat, studying me with such intensity I felt it like a physical touch. "You really don't know." "Know what?" But he just shook his head, that dangerous smile playing at his lips. "Later. For now, just trust that you're safe with me." The problem was, I did. Against all logic and reason, sitting in this car with this commanding stranger whose name apparently should terrify me, I felt safer than I had in months, and that realization was more frightening than anything else that had happened tonight. The restaurant Dante brought me to wasn't listed on any map I'd ever seen. We drove for 20 minutes through increasingly upscale neighborhoods until we pulled up to what looked like a historic brownstone, discreet and elegant, with no sign announcing its purpose. The only indication it was anything other than a private residence was the subtle valet station, and the way two men in dark suits straightened to attention the moment our car appeared. Dante's hand found the small of my back as we exited the vehicle, the touch proprietary and warm even through his jacket that I still wore. The men at the entrance nodded with deep respect. Or was it fear, as we passed? Inside, the space was breathtaking. Exposed brick walls, Edison bulbs casting warm amber light, the scent of fresh bread and herbs, and something rich cooking in wine sauce. But we didn't stop in the main dining room, where well-dressed patrons looked up with curiosity. Dante guided me toward a staircase at the back, his hand never leaving my back, while a woman who appeared to be the manager rushed over. "Mr. Caruso, we weren't expecting—" "The upstairs room, immediately." His tone left no room for discussion. "And have Marco prepare the full tasting menu, wine pairing, water, and espresso after." "Of course, sir, right away." She disappeared in a flurry of efficient movement. We climbed the stairs, and I became aware of another presence behind us. One of Dante's men, keeping a discreet distance but always there. The second floor held only 3 doors, and Dante opened the center one to reveal an intimate dining room that stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering city, a single table set for 2 beneath a crystal chandelier, fresh orchids in a centerpiece that probably cost more than my rent. Candles flickered in wall sconces, casting dancing shadows across cream-colored walls, adorned with original artwork I was fairly certain I'd seen in museums. "This is too much," I whispered, suddenly overwhelmed. "I can't sit." Not harsh, but absolute. He pulled out a chair, waiting. I sat because my legs were shaking, because the surreality of the evening had finally caught up with me. Because when Dante Caruso told you to do something, some primal part of your brain simply obeyed. He took the seat across from me, and even sitting, he radiated power. He'd rolled up his shirt sleeves during the car ride, revealing forearms that spoke of strength, and I noticed for the first time the edge of a tattoo peeking out. Dark lines that looked like they might be part of something larger, hidden beneath the expensive fabric. A waiter appeared with water and wine, pouring with practiced precision before vanishing like smoke. We were alone, but I knew the guard was just outside the door. The silence stretched between us, charged and heavy. "Why are you doing this?" I finally asked. "The truth." "Please." Dante lifted his wine glass, studying the dark liquid before his eyes met mine. "You asked me a question in the car, if my name should mean something." He took a sip, set down the glass with controlled precision. "Dante Caruso. My family controls the ports, the unions, certain business interests in this city. We have for 3 generations." The words hung in the air, their implications slowly sinking in. Ports, unions, business interests. The way people had reacted to him. The guards. The private dining room in a restaurant with no name. The gun I'd glimpsed in his holster. I couldn't say it. Couldn't make the word form. "Mafia," he finished calmly, as if discussing the weather. "Yes." I should have run. Every survival instinct should have sent me bolting for the door. Instead, I sat frozen, my heart hammering, staring at this beautiful, dangerous man who'd just confirmed my worst suspicion with the casualness of someone ordering coffee. "And you brought me here because you needed help, because you sent me a message that showed me someone vulnerable and alone and breaking, because—" He paused, something flickering across his face, because when I read your words, I felt something I haven't felt in a very long time. The need to protect. You don't know me. No, he agreed, not yet. But I will. The certainty in his voice sent a shiver through me. Before I could respond, waiters appeared with the first course. Delicate scallops on a bed of microgreens, the presentation like edible art. My stomach growled audibly, betraying how long it had been since I'd eaten properly. Eat, Dante commanded softly. We'll talk after. I wanted to argue, to demand more answers, but the food was there and I was starving and my body overruled my brain. The first bite exploded with flavor, butter and citrus, and the perfect sear of the scallop. I couldn't suppress the small sound of appreciation that escaped me. Dante's eyes darkened as he watched me eat, an intensity in his gaze that made me acutely aware of every movement, every taste, every small pleasure. He barely touched his own food, focused entirely on me with a concentration that felt almost predatory. You're not eating, I observed, trying to break the spell of his attention. I'm enjoying watching you. Direct, unashamed. His eyes never left my face. You make the smallest sounds when you taste something good. I want to know what other sounds you make. Heat flooded my cheeks, the innuendo unmistakable. That's... You can't just say things like that. Why not? It's the truth. He leaned forward slightly, his presence overwhelming even across the table. I don't believe in wasting time with games, Emma. I see something I want. I take it. And I want you. The bluntness of it stole my breath. You don't even know me, I repeated weakly. I know you're struggling, but too proud to ask for help. I know you have a friend named Sarah who sets you up on blind dates you don't want. I know you pretend to be stronger than you feel, but underneath, you're breaking from the weight of carrying everything alone. His voice dropped lower, intimate. I know that when I put my jacket around your shoulders, you pulled it closer and breathed in deep, like you were trying to memorize the scent. I know you're sitting here with me when every rational thought is telling you to run, because some part of you recognizes that I can give you what you need. And what's that? My voice came out barely above a whisper. Safety. Security. Someone to handle the things that are breaking you. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. The contact was electric. Let me take care of you, Emma. I don't need to be taken care of. I can handle my own problems. Can you? Not cruel, just factual. 3 months behind on rent. Work to exhaustion at a job that doesn't pay enough. Skipping meals. When was the last time someone actually helped you instead of taking from you? I pulled my hand back, anger flaring. You don't get to... I do. He sat back, but his eyes never wavered. Because I'm offering you a choice. Keep struggling alone, or accept my help. Nothing is free. What do you want in return? A smile curved his lips, dangerous and knowing. Smart girl. You're right. Nothing is free. What I want is you. In my life. Under my protection. In my bed, eventually, when you're ready. I want to know everything about you. I want to be the one you text when you're falling apart. I want to solve your problems and watch you flourish instead of barely surviving. The honesty was overwhelming. No games, no subtle manipulation, just raw, direct desire laid out like cards on a table. Part of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity. This man, this powerful, dangerous stranger wanted to... What? Keep me? Own me? That's insane, I said. You can't just decide you want someone and expect them to... Can I? He gestured around us. Emma, I built an empire on knowing what I want and taking it. But with you, I'm offering a choice. Walk away right now, and I'll have you driven home safely. You'll never hear from me again. Or stay, finish this meal, and let me show you what your life could be. This isn't real life. This is some fantasy. This is my life, and it could be yours. His phone buzzed again, and this time when he looked at it, murder flashed across his face. His jaw clenched, and I watched him type a response with barely controlled fury before setting the phone face down on the table. When he looked back at me, the rage was carefully masked, but I'd seen it, the real danger beneath the civilized exterior. What was that? I asked. Business. Someone who needs to be reminded of their place. He said it casually, but the threat underlying the words was unmistakable. This was what he was. Not just the luxury and protection, but the violence and darkness too. The second course arrived, pasta that melted on my tongue, each bite better than the last. I ate slowly now, thinking, processing, trying to understand how my life had spiraled from a failed blind date to sitting across from a mafia boss who claimed to want me. Why me? I finally asked. You could have anyone. Why a broke waitress who texted you by accident? Something shifted in his expression, a flash of old pain before it was shuttered away. My mother, he said quietly, grew up poor, struggled. My father saw her working 3 jobs to support her sick brother, barely eating, breaking herself for people who didn't deserve her sacrifice. He fell in love with her strength, her resilience, her refusal to give up even when everything was against her. He gave her the world, protected her, cherished her until the day she died. He paused, his fingers drumming once against the table, the only sign of emotion. When I read your message, I heard my mother in your words. That exhaustion, that moment of breaking. And I thought, his eyes met mine, and the intensity there made my breath catch. I thought I want to be for you what my father was for her. The confession hung between us, raw and honest and terrifying in its implications. This wasn't just attraction or whim. This was something deeper, something that spoke to whatever darkness drove Dante Caruso. Your father? Is he still alive? No. Killed when I was 19. Betrayal from within our own organization. His voice went flat, emotionless in the way that suggested deep wells of controlled rage. I took over, found the traitor, made an example. No one has dared to betray the Caruso family since. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt a strange pull toward this man who wore danger like a second skin, but looked at me like I was something precious and fragile that needed protecting. I don't know what to say, I admitted. Say you'll let me help you. Say you'll give us, a chance. He reached across the table again, palm up, waiting 1 week. Let me handle your rent, get you out of that survival mode, show you what your life could be with someone who has the resources to actually solve your problems. If after 1 week you want to walk away, I'll let you go. No strings, no threats. You have my word. And if I stay? His smile was pure predator. Then you're mine, Emma Shaw, and I protect what's mine with everything I have. The choice stretched before me. Safe, sensible, struggling alone, or dangerous, insane. Surrendering to this powerful stranger who promised to remake my world. My hand trembled as I lifted it, hovering in the space between us. And then, against all logic, against every warning screaming in my head, I placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine with possessive certainty, and something fundamental shifted in that moment. I saw it in his eyes, triumph, satisfaction, and a hunger that promised he would never let me go. Wise choice, he murmured, bringing my hand to his lips and pressing a kiss to my knuckles that sent fire racing through my veins. Now finish your dinner, cara mia. We have much to discuss about your new life. The week that followed was a fever dream that rewrote every assumption I'd ever held about my life. Monday morning, I woke up in my cramped apartment to find an envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a cashier's check for enough to cover my back rent, next month's rent, and a substantial cushion beyond that. No note, no explanation needed. Just Dante keeping his word. By Monday afternoon, a black car appeared outside the diner where I worked my lunch shift. The driver, the same scarred man from that first night, handed me a phone, sleek, expensive, already programmed with one contact. Dante, keep this with you. Always. If you need anything, call me. If anyone bothers you, call me. If you're scared, call me. I'll answer. I stared at those words for a full minute, my thumb hovering over the reply button. The other waitresses watched through the window, whispering among themselves about the luxury sedan that looked so out of place in our neighborhood. Me. This is too much. Dante. This is nothing. Dinner tonight. The car will pick you up at 7. Not a request. Never a request with him. I should have said no, established boundaries, reminded him that I wasn't something he could simply command. Instead, I found myself checking the clock every 10 minutes until my shift ended, my heart racing with anticipation I didn't want to acknowledge. That night, he took me to the opera. I'd never been, couldn't have afforded it in 1,000 years. Dante sat beside me in a private box, his presence overwhelming in the intimate space, and I felt his eyes on me more than the stage. During intermission, he introduced me to people whose names I recognized from news articles about business and politics, and the way they deferred to him with barely concealed nervousness made my stomach twist with the reality of who he was. "You're uncomfortable," he observed as we settled back for the second act, his hand finding mine in the darkness. "Everyone's afraid of you," I whispered. "Yes." No denial, no apology. His thumb traced circles on my palm, the gesture oddly soothing. "Does that frighten you?" "It should. But it doesn't." He brought my hand to his lips, kissing my knuckles while keeping his eyes locked on mine. "You see the danger, Emma, but you also see the protection it offers. You're smarter than you give yourself credit for." Tuesday, I came home from my morning shift to find my apartment door unlocked. My heart seized with panic until I stepped inside to find not intruders, but 3 women with measuring tapes and fabric samples. Dante stood in my tiny living room, looking impossibly out of place in his tailored suit among my second-hand furniture. "What is this?" I demanded, embarrassment flooding through me at him seeing how I really lived. The peeling paint, the furniture held together with hope and duct tape, the evidence of my poverty laid bare. "Your wardrobe is insufficient for the places I want to take you." He said it without judgment, simply stating a fact. "These ladies will measure you for appropriate clothing. Unless you'd prefer to choose yourself, I can have you taken to the boutiques on 5th Avenue. I can't afford—" "I can." He moved closer, his presence filling my small space until there was nothing but him. "Stop thinking about cost, Kara. Let me handle these details." "This isn't— Dante, this is too much, too fast. You're steamrolling my entire life." Something flickered in his expression. A moment of uncertainty quickly masked. "Would you prefer I stop? Pull back?" The honest answer terrified me. Because no, I didn't want him to stop. In 3 days, he'd eliminated the crushing anxiety about rent, replaced my dying phone with reliable technology, fed me better than I'd eaten in months. For the first time in years, I wasn't constantly calculating costs, skipping meals, lying awake at 3 a.m. paralyzed by financial panic. "I don't know what I want," I admitted quietly. He cupped my face in his hands, the gesture surprisingly gentle from a man who radiated such danger. "Then let me decide for you. Let me take care of you while you figure it out." I should have said no. Instead, I let the women measure me, watched Dante make notes on his phone about colors and styles, accepted this surreal invasion of my life by a man who decided I was his to protect. Wednesday brought a breaking point. I was closing the diner alone, the last customer having left an hour before, when 3 men walked in. They weren't the usual late-night crowd. Too clean, too purposeful, with eyes that scanned the space like predators assessing territory. "We're closed," I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I wiped down the counter. The largest one smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We're not here to eat, sweetheart. We're here to deliver a message." Ice flooded my veins. "I think you have the wrong person. Emma Shaw, right? Dating Dante Caruso?" He leaned against the counter, his smile widening at my expression. "Word gets around fast in our world. See, Dante has some business associates who aren't happy about his recent distraction. They wanted us to suggest you might want to reconsider that relationship. I don't know what you're—" "Don't play stupid." His voice hardened. "You're the weakness we've been waiting for." Dante's built quite the empire, made himself untouchable, but everyone has a weakness, and sweetheart, you just became his. Fear clawed up my throat, but beneath it, anger sparked. "Get out. Now, or I'm calling the police." They laughed. All 3 of them, like I'd said something hilarious. "The police? You really don't understand the world you've stepped into, do you?" The leader reached across the counter, his hand closing around my wrist with bruising force. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell Dante you're done, made a mistake, scared of his world, whatever, And you're going to disappear from his life before you cause problems for people who don't appreciate. The door exploded inward. I'd never seen violence like that before. Dante moved with lethal efficiency, crossing the space in seconds. One of his men, I recognized the scarred driver, slammed the man holding me against the wall with force that cracked the plaster. The other two tried to fight back, but it was over in moments. Dante's fist connected with the leader's jaw with a sickening crunch, and the man crumpled. Then Dante was in front of me, his hands on my face, his eyes wild with something between fury and fear. Did they hurt you? Emma, look at me. Did they hurt you? I'm fine, I managed, though I was shaking. How did you know? I have someone watching you, always. He turned to the men on the floor, his voice dropping to something that made my blood run cold. Take them to the warehouse. I want to know who sent them, and I want them to understand what happens when someone threatens what's mine. Dante, I caught his arm as he started to turn away. You can't kill people because they threatened me. His eyes met mine, and what I saw there stopped my breath. Pure, cold rage, barely leashed. I will. Anyone who touches you, threatens you, even looks at you wrong, they forfeit their lives. This is what I am, Emma. This is the protection I offer. The scarred driver and two others I hadn't noticed arrive were hauling the men out through the back. The leader was conscious enough to whimper, blood streaming from his broken nose. I should have felt horror, should have called the police, should have run from this graphic display of violence. Instead, I felt safe. Take me home, I whispered. My home, he corrected, and the possession in his voice sent a shiver through me that had nothing to do with fear. You're not staying alone tonight. Pack a bag. You're staying with me until I know who sent them, and every threat is eliminated. Dante, I can't just... You can. You will. He pulled me against him, and I felt the rapid beat of his heart, the tremor in his hands that betrayed how affected he was despite his controlled exterior. When I got the alert that someone had entered the diner after closing, when I realized you were in danger, his grip tightened. You're not going anywhere. I can't protect you. Not until this is handled. An hour later, I stood in the penthouse apartment that Dante called home, a space so luxurious it made my apartment look like a storage closet. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering cityscape, and everywhere I looked spoke of wealth I couldn't begin to comprehend. The guest room is prepared, Dante said, showing me to a suite larger than my entire apartment, complete with an ensuite bathroom of marble and gold fixtures. But I'd prefer you stayed in my room. I want you close. That's not... We haven't... I couldn't finish the sentence, hyper-aware of him in the intimate space. I'm not asking you to sleep with me, Emma. I'm asking you to sleep beside me so I know you're safe. He stepped closer, his hand cupping my cheek. I need to know you're safe. After tonight, I need... He broke off, jaw clenching. Please, that single word, spoken with such raw need, broke through my defenses. Okay. His bedroom was a study in controlled luxury. Dark wood, expensive linens, the scent of him everywhere. He gave me one of his shirts to sleep in, and the fabric swallowed me, hitting mid-thigh. When I emerged from the bathroom, he was sitting on the edge of the bed in dark sleep pants, his chest bare, revealing the full extent of the tattoos I'd only glimpsed, the intricate design of dark wings spreading across his shoulders and back. Come here. He held out his hand, and I took it, letting him pull me onto the bed beside him. We lay facing each other, close enough that I could feel his warmth, see every detail of his face in the dim light. Tell me about them, I said softly, reaching out to trace the edge of a wing on his shoulder. Your tattoos. His eyes darkened at my touch. Each one marks something significant. This one, he guided my hand to a design over his heart, was for my mother, the day she died. The wings are for my father, freedom and protection, what he gave our family. And this, he turned, showing me script along his ribs I hadn't noticed, is the family motto, Familia, soprattutto. Family above all. And I'm supposed to be part of that? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Your family? You already are. He pulled me closer, tucking me against his chest, his arms encircling me with possessive certainty. From the moment you put your hand in mine at that restaurant, You became mine to protect, and I protect what's mine, Emma. Always. I should have argued, should have reminded him that people weren't possessions, that a week wasn't long enough to make such declarations. Instead, I pressed closer, feeling safer in the arms of a dangerous man than I'd ever felt in my life. I'm scared. I admitted against his chest. Good. Fear will keep you careful. His hand stroked through my hair, the gesture soothing. But never fear me. Everything I do, every violent thing, every dark part of who I am, it's all to keep you safe. Remember that. I fell asleep to the steady beat of his heart, wrapped in warmth and safety, and the protection of a man who'd rewritten my world in a week. And somewhere in the darkness, in that space between waking and dreams, I admitted the truth I'd been avoiding. I was falling for Dante Caruso, and there would be no going back. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the scent of coffee. For a moment, disorientation clouded my thoughts. This wasn't my apartment. These weren't my threadbare sheets, and the warmth beside me definitely wasn't my usual solitude. Dante. He was already awake, propped against the headboard with his phone in hand, looking devastatingly attractive in the morning light. When he noticed my eyes open, something softened in his expression. Coffee's ready. Breakfast will be here in 10 minutes. He set his phone aside, his full attention shifting to me. How did you sleep? Better than I have in months, I admitted, sitting up and pushing hair from my face. His shirt had ridden up during the night, and I caught him tracking the movement with dark eyes. Any news about last night? His jaw tightened. The men were sent by the Rossetti family. They've been wanting to expand into territory I control. Thought they could leverage you as a weakness. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with surprising gentleness. They were wrong. You're not a weakness, Emma. You're my reason to be absolutely merciless. A chill ran through me at the cold promise in his voice. What are you going to do? What I always do. Send a message that will ensure no one ever threatens you again. He studied my face, reading whatever he found there. Does that frighten you, knowing what I'm capable of? Yes, I said honestly. But not in the way you think. I'm scared of how much I trust you. How safe I feel with you, when logically I should be running. Something flickered in his eyes, vulnerability, quickly masked. And yet you stayed. You slept in my arms. You're still here. His hand cupped my cheek. Why, Emma? Because you see me. Really see me. Not just the struggling waitress or the girl who can't catch a break, but me. And you want to give me things no one's ever offered. Safety, security, a life where I'm not constantly drowning. I leaned into his touch. That's terrifying and intoxicating, and I don't know how to process any of it. Then don't process it. Just feel it. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my lips. Let me take care of you. Let me protect you. Let me make you mine in every way that matters. The kiss was inevitable. His lips claimed mine with possessive certainty, gentle at first, then deepening when I responded. His hand tangled in my hair, angling my head for better access, and I melted into him, tasting coffee and desire and promises I desperately wanted to believe. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were nearly black with want. Say yes, Emma. Say you're mine. His phone exploded with buzzing, shattering the moment. Dante cursed in Italian, glancing at the screen, and the tenderness vanished from his face. I have to take this. He pressed a quick kiss to my forehead before standing, already shifting into the ruthless businessman as he answered. Talk. I watched him pace to the window, his voice dropping into rapid Italian punctuated with commands that needed no translation. This was his world, power and violence, and decisions that affected lives, and he wanted me in it. Breakfast arrived as promised, a spread that would have fed 10 people, delivered by staff who moved with quiet efficiency and never met my eyes. After Dante's call ended, we ate in comfortable silence, though I noticed he kept his phone close, checking it with increasing frequency. I need to handle some business today, he said finally, his tone apologetic. Rossetti's move requires immediate response, but I want you to stay here, where it's safe. I've assigned Marco, he gestured to the scarred driver who appeared in the doorway, to remain with you. Anything you need, tell him. I can't just hide in your apartment. You can. You will. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket, transforming into someone harder, more dangerous. The people I'm dealing with today won't hesitate to use you against me if given the chance. Until I've handled this situation, you stay here, protected. Safe. The command rankled, but I saw the fear beneath it, the same fear that had driven him to my rescue last night. How long? Today. Maybe tomorrow. He came around the table, tilting my chin up to meet his eyes. I know you hate feeling trapped, but this is temporary. Once the Rossettis understand the consequences of threatening you, once I've made an example that will ripple through every family in this city, you'll have freedom again. My protection without the cage. And if I can't handle this life, the violence, the danger, the waiting while you do terrible things to people who crossed you, his thumb brushed across my lower lip, the gesture achingly tender. Then I'll let you go, like I promised. 1 week, Emma. We're on day 5. 2 more days, and if you want to walk away, I'll honor that. But I don't think you will. Why not? Because you feel it too, this pull between us, this recognition that we fit in ways that shouldn't make sense but do. He leaned down, his lips brushing mine. You need someone strong enough to carry the burdens you've been shouldering alone. I need someone who sees the man beneath the monster. We complete each other, cara mia. He left with a final kiss that promised more, and I spent the day in his penthouse feeling like a bird in a gilded cage. Marco stationed himself by the door, silent and intimidating, while I explored Dante's space. Books in Italian and English lined shelves, philosophy, history, classic literature. Photos showed a younger Dante with a beautiful woman who had to be his mother, her smile bright and genuine. In one drawer, I found a small box containing a child's drawing, faded with age, of stick figures labeled Mama, Papa, Dante. The man was a contradiction, brutal and tender, violent and protective, demanding and generous. And I was falling deeper with every revelation. Evening came with no word from Dante. I tried to eat the dinner Marco had ordered, but anxiety had stolen my appetite. What was he doing? Was he safe? The questions circled endlessly until my phone, the one Dante had given me, finally rang. Cara mia. His voice was rough, tired, but warm. How are you holding up? Worried about you, I admitted. Are you okay? A pause, then. The Rossettis won't be a problem anymore. Neither will anyone else who might have considered you a viable target. I made sure of it. The edge in his voice spoke volumes about what "made sure" entailed. When will you be home? Soon. I need to shower and change. There's blood on my suit. He said it so casually, and I should have been horrified. Instead, I felt only relief that he was safe. Wait for me, Emma. I want to see you. 2 hours later, he walked through the door looking exhausted, but satisfied. His hair was damp from a shower, and he'd changed into casual clothes that made him look younger, more approachable. But his eyes held shadows of whatever he'd done today. Come here, he said softly, and I went to him without hesitation. His arms wrapped around me, and he buried his face in my hair, breathing deep. You smell like my shampoo. I used your shower. Hope that's okay. More than okay. I like you surrounded by my things, smelling like me. He pulled back enough to look at my face. 2 more days, Emma. Can you give me 2 more days to prove this can work? Instead of answering, I kissed him. Poured everything I was feeling, the fear, the desire, the growing certainty that this dangerous man had become essential to me, into that kiss. He responded with hungry intensity, lifting me effortlessly and carrying me to the couch, settling me on his lap without breaking the kiss. Is that a yes? He murmured against my lips. It's a convince me, I breathed back. His laugh was low and dark and full of promise. Challenge accepted. The next 2 days blurred together in a haze of luxury and intimacy. Dante took time off from his business to focus on me, showing me his city through new eyes. We had breakfast at a cafe where the owner greeted him like royalty, lunch at a rooftop garden I hadn't known existed, dinner at small family restaurants where the matriarchs pinched his cheeks and called him il mio ragazzo. He introduced me to parts of his world, the legitimate businesses that fronted his empire, the community centers his family funded, the people who depended on Caruso protection. I saw how he wasn't just feared but respected, how his word was law, but also how he used that power to help those who couldn't help themselves. My father taught me that power without purpose is tyranny, he explained as we walked through a neighborhood playground his family had built. We take from those who can afford it and protect those who can't. It's not altruism. It's enlightened self-interest. Loyal communities don't report to the authorities. You make it sound almost noble. It's not. I'm not noble, Emma. I've killed men, ruined lives, done things that would haunt anyone with a conscience. He stopped, turning to face me fully. But I'd do it all again to keep you safe. To keep this... He gestured between us. Protected. Does that make me a monster? Maybe, I said honestly. But you're my monster. The possessive satisfaction that flashed across his face should have worried me. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in my stomach. That night, when he kissed me goodnight at the door to my guest room, I'd been sleeping there the past 2 nights, needing space to think. I almost pulled him inside. Almost. On the 7th day, exactly 1 week from that first chaotic text, Dante brought me back to my apartment. The space looked different now. He'd had it cleaned, repaired, made livable again. But it felt foreign, like a costume I'd outgrown. Decision time, he said quietly, standing in the center of my tiny living room. You've seen my world, experienced what I can offer, understood the dangers and the benefits. Now you choose, Emma. Stay in this life, struggling alone, safe from my darkness, or come with me. Be mine. Accept everything that means, the protection, the luxury, the violence, the possession. Those aren't exactly equal options. No, he agreed, they're not. One keeps you safe from me, but leaves you vulnerable to everything else. The other makes you mine to protect, but ties you to a dangerous man in a violent world. Choose. I looked around my apartment, at the evidence of my old life, the struggle, the loneliness. Then I looked at Dante, this beautiful, terrifying man who'd crashed into my existence and offered me everything I'd never dared dream of. I choose you, I whispered. God help me. I choose you. The transformation on his face was breathtaking, pure triumph and relief, and something that looked dangerously close to love. He crossed the space between us in 2 strides, lifting me into his arms and kissing me with bruising intensity. Mine, he growled against my lips. Say it. Yours, I breathed back, and felt something fundamental shift in the universe. I'm yours, Dante. Forever, cara mia. Once you're mine, I never let go. It should have sounded like a threat. Instead, it sounded like a promise of safety I'd been searching for my entire life. 6 months later, I stood in Dante's penthouse, our penthouse now, watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold and amber. The ring on my finger caught the light, a stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds that had belonged to his mother. Beautiful view, Dante murmured, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist. It never gets old, I agreed, leaning back against his chest. I wasn't talking about the city. He turned me in his arms, his eyes soft with the expression I now recognized as love. How was your day? Good. I started that business course you suggested. And I had lunch with Sarah. She still can't believe this is real. Neither can I sometimes. His hand cupped my cheek. The girl who texted the wrong number and changed everything. Life with Dante was never simple. There were still dangerous moments, still violence lurking beneath the surface of our existence. But there was also security, purpose, and a love so intense, it sometimes scared me with its depth. He'd kept every promise, protected me, cherished me, given me opportunities to grow beyond survival mode. I'd gone back to school, started building a future that was mine, but supported by his resources. He'd taught me about his world, never hiding the darkness, but always shielding me from the worst of it. And in return, I'd given him something he'd never had. Someone who loved the man beneath the power, who saw his vulnerabilities and cherished them. No regrets? He asked, a question he posed sometimes when the shadows got too dark. Not one, I said honestly. You? Only that I didn't find you sooner. He kissed me softly, a promise and a claim. Ti amo, Emma Caruso. I'd taken his name 3 months ago in a small ceremony attended by his family and the few people I trusted completely. Emma Caruso, wife of a mafia boss, protected, possessed, and utterly, completely in love. "I love you too," I whispered back. Outside, the city glittered with possibility. Inside, wrapped in the arms of my dangerous, devoted husband, I was finally truly home. The girl who'd texted the wrong number had found exactly what she needed, not a savior, but a partner powerful enough to stand beside her, fight for her, and love her with an intensity that would burn away any threat that dared come close. And I'd learned that sometimes, the most beautiful things in life came from the most unexpected mistakes.